the countrywide debt is prepared to eclipse the US economy. What you want to be aware of: the pandemic has pushed federal debt to its best possible ranges, considering the fact that World War II, even earlier than the coronavirus pandemic, pushed authorities' spending off the charts. The countrywide debt used to be snowballing at an alarming rate. The countrywide debt has ballooned to its easiest stages, considering the fact that World War II amid the pandemic, and the federal debt held by using the public is anticipated to eclipse the dimension of the whole United States economy, measured in GDP by way of subsequent year, in accordance to the Congressional Budget Office's most current outlook. Government debt for the duration of so-called war times, or in a world fitness disaster, may now not always be an awful thing, economists say. But eventually, this debt will have to be serviced, inserting a looming burden on future monetary boom and the subsequent generation. It's beneficial in the brief run, however, it may want to be detrimental in the lengthy run. Bill Gale, a senior fellow at the Brookings Institutions, instructed ABC News of authorities borrowing. The instance I supply human beings every now and then is, say it is the center of the afternoon and your electricity is lagging. If you ingest sugar and caffeine, you will get a raise of energy, he said. But if your long-term weight loss program is sugar and caffeine, you will discover yourself lagging. What is the countrywide debt? The unfathomably large gross countrywide debt presently tops $26.7 trillion in accordance to the Treasury Department. That gross countrywide debt discern is damaged up in two parts, with about $20.8 trillion of it being debt the public owes and about $5.8 trillion of it stemming from intergovernmental holdings such as Social Security, have faith dollars, or different instances, the place the authorities surely owes itself money. It's the $20 trillion that economists fear about due to the fact it is the cash that influences the credit score market. It is have a great deal the authorities owes. Bob Bixby, the government director of the Concord Coalition, an nonpartisan fiscal accountability advocacy team primarily based in Washington, D.C., advised ABC News how a whole lot the authorities owes itself would not surely have an impact on the economy. It is greater of a bookkeeping issue. The countrywide debt accumulates as the authorities runs price range deficits year after year. The price range deficit is the annual distinction between authorities' spending and revenue. Largely due to the pandemic, in simply fiscal year 2020, the CBO forecasts a deficit of $3.3 trillion, extra than triple the shortfall in 2019, and the greatest deficit is a percentage of GDP, because 1945, people have no way of appreciation what that capacity when you get to the umpteenth trillion dollars, Gale added. One way humans strive to get a greater sensible appreciation of it is to scale it relative to GDP. In FY 2020, the federal debt held via the public, it is predicted to be 98% of whole GDP, in contrast with 79% at the stop of 2019. In 2021, it is predicted to exceed 100% of GDP and projected to upward jostle to 107% of GDP. The perfect on document, with the 8th of 2023 in accordance to the CBO's most latest outlook. Bixby wrote that it is beneficial to measure the debt towards the measurement of the nation's economy, because the measurement of the economic system is what you're going to use to pay that debt. how has the pandemic influenced the countrywide debt, the fitness disaster and ensuing monetary disaster delivered via the COVID-19 pandemic triggered authorities borrowing to soar. However, even earlier than that, the countrywide debt used to be already huge, economists say. Well, earlier than the pandemic, we had been at very best degree ever bearing for a few years around the Second World War, Gale instructed ABC News. Now it appears like we're going to blow via the combat degree ambitions in a year or two. Gale cited that the pandemic and coverage response generated a lot greater authority spending and tax cuts. However, delivered that in times of disaster, that is no longer always a terrible thing. I prefer to be clear we wished that spending and these tax cuts, due to the fact that quite a number shut down and work from home orders required humans to detach from the economy, so we wanted authorities raised to offset that, he said. Moreover, activity costs amid the pandemic are presently very low, while the general ramifications of low activity fees on the economic system at giant can get complicated, Gale noted. It might also, or may also now, not be proper information for the economy. However, it is right for the budget. We are in very uncommon instances with the excessive debt. However, extraordinary low hobby rates, he added. The low pastime fees are doing a lot of work in retaining the fiscal state of affairs sane. If hobby charges had been to upward push significantly, we would face a lot better long-term fiscal burdens. Why does this remember, and who will pay it? Despite the US price range deficits, the constructing blocks of countrywide debt, persevering with the rise, public difficulty about it in current years has fallen, in accordance to a peer research survey launched final month. Over the lengthy term, the skyrocketing federal debt will make it extra tough for the authorities to make investments in matters like infrastructure, education, protection and more. Another difficulty is that when the US runs massive price range deficits, whilst buying and selling companions like China work out fiscal discipline, the US change deficit will grow. US alternate deficits have helped motive tariffs and exchange wars with the relaxation of the world. It's sincerely a balancing act, and it is tough to say the deficit is affecting me in this way today, he said. I suppose what humans want to do is suppose about what is accurate for the long-term fitness of the financial system and the potentialities for future generations, and think about the debt on that basis. Most of the idea, comment, information, and criticism containing in these videos have been created by Daily News Report. Before making any important investment decision, use the information contained in these videos as a starting point for conducting your own research. If you make any investment or legal decision, it is advised to consult an expert before making this decision.